All right, welcome back to another live stream here on Free Will Photos. If we are meeting for the first time, my name is Chris and I do photo editing tutorials here on the channel. Now, two things I want to make you aware of. First one is if you are over on Vero, then go ahead and send me a message at Free Will Photos or come take a look at my work, whatever. Share your work with me. If you're on Vero, let's connect, all right? I'm a real person. I'm not some dude that hides behind YouTube itself. I have real things that go on in my life, and I just like to meet with other photographers and artists and people who use ON1. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if for whatever reason you're considering to pick up ON1 Photo Raw 2023, then I would ask that you use coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. This allows you to save 20% at checkout, and I do get a small commission. It helps me continue to make these content tutorials, things of that sort. So if that's something you're interested in, consider using that. I believe this also works on subscription-based things. So if you are looking to get a subscription model of ON1, this can help you save 5%. Not the 20%, but 5%. The 20% coupon does work for anything else on the store though. So if you were looking to pick up a training or maybe even some presets, brush packs, whatever it may be, you can go to on1.com, use FreeWillPhotos20 at checkout and save 20%. Now, today is a very interesting, tutorial. I don't do this often, but it's also very subjective. So I'm going to give that disclaimer up front. I don't want anyone to think like, oh, Chris, you're telling me that I have to hyper edit an image or anything like that. And that's actually not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to show you is you can use some tools inside of ON1 that reminisce or bring back some uses from Photoshop. Now, there are some things that I'm going to point out throughout this tutorial that may be really, really subjective, but, you know, that's just the way photography is, all right? Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on retouching portraits, because everyone sees it different. Some people say, I don't want to retouch a portrait because I want to make the person look like what they look like. And I agree with that. Then there's others who say, hey, I'm into fantasy art, so I don't want them to look like themselves. I want them to look like the vision that I had for them. And that's perfectly fine too. Just want to know your comments down below. So let's go ahead and jump into the computer. And as you can see, I have 3 images here on the screen. And I want to say, if you would like to follow along, you can go and download all 3 of these images from the collection listed below. All of these images are from Unsplash. So, you know, everyone can get a copy of them and you can edit along with me. We're going to start with this photo in the center. And that's because one of the things that happened here, and if you know, I've been talking about building my headshot business, and so the eyes matter a lot. That's also the reason why I selected this particular concept today, and that's because the eyes really do center you on the photo. Now, this is a great photo. I'm not knocking this this photographer, but look at the ring light that they used. And ring lights, I think they can give a flattering effect, except for the fact that you get this ring in the eyes. And to me, that's not a very good thing. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And for this, all we're going to do is use the clone stamp tool. Now, if you've never used the clone stamp tool, it's actually pretty simple. We're going to zoom in a little bit further. So let me hit Z. And the reason why I'm zooming in so much is because the space that I'm about to work in is going to be really, really small. Now, if this is creeping you out that we're zoomed in on this dude's eyes so far, I apologize. But yeah, it's just the nature of what we got to do today. So we're going to hit retouch, and then I'm going to click on the little stamp looking icon because I want to clone stamp. And the reason, the healing brush, if I take the healing brush and I make it about the same size and I paint over it, it's going to sample something over there and it's going to do an okay job, but there's still like that white line, and that's not what I like or what I want to deal with. So instead, and you can even say, okay, well, what about the healing brush? All right, I'm just going through all the tools real quick, make it simple. So that just blurs it. All right, we don't want that either. So we'll undo that, and we're going to come over to the clone stamp. Now, I'm not even going to try the magic eraser. So if you're like, well, you forgot a tool. Yeah, I did. For the same reason that it's not going to work. So what you're going to do is click on the stamp tool, which is this little stamp all the way over to the far right side inside of the retouching module. All right. And then I'm going to hold down the option key and select a black area because I want to repaint his pupil. And I'm also going to repaint in around here, but right now the part that I'm starting on is on his pupil. So I'm just going to make my brush about the same size as the ring light, and I'm just going to restore his pupil in this area. And this doesn't have to be entirely precise because we're going to be zoomed out, but I wanted to zoom in so that way I can make sure that I'm sampling a good area, and it makes it easier for me to brush this in around the image. All right. So now we're starting to get more into his iris. So I'm going to click over here now, and I can make the brush a little bit larger. And I'm using 100% feather, which I think is fine. And now I'm just going to paint this in. So for the sake of the tutorial, and since this is a live stream that I'm not editing, I'm going to go a little bit faster than I normally would, but you really do want to take some time here to paint this in the right way. And I hate to use the term right way because I know that that's very arbitrary. And what you see me doing is I'm resampling as I move around because I'm very cautious of, or I'm paying attention to where my sample point is on the image. And you can tell where your sample point is as you paint by looking at that crosshair to the far left of his eye. All right. So almost done here. I just made a big stroke there. Again, I'm not making this entirely perfect. I just want to showcase how you can get rid of this ring light if that's the only type of light that you have available. Now, for whatever reason, ON1 likes to resample the older pixels if you haven't refreshed the brush. And I'll just get rid of this little area where I was painting the pupil. All right. So, and be careful that you don't make the pupil look unnatural. And constant lights are going to shrink your pupil down. All right. The reason for that is a constant light, it's in your face. It's not like a flash, it just happens in an instant. The constant light is in your face, and because your eyes are always trying to focus, it's trying to reduce the amount of light. And same thing with our lenses. If you stop down the aperture, less light comes in. Well, our eyes, if you stop them down, then less light comes in. So that's what happens. And a ring light is a continuous light. So it's actually pretty desirable in headshots. So that's, it's good that we got small pupils here. So this one looks like it went all the way around his pupil. So we shouldn't have too many issues getting this off of and just restoring his iris. So let me just go through this really quickly. And I realized I am painting out some of his eyelashes. Maybe in a future tutorial, I will show you how you can repaint eyelashes like manually, so you can really stylize these things. You can do a lot of photo manipulation. But again, I try to do more ethical edits, things that if you looked at the image and then you seen the person, you wouldn't be like, oh man, you were really photoshopped or retouched. You'll be like, oh yeah, that looks just like that person. I once had a friend who his grandmother got a photo taken, and the retoucher like got rid of a lot of just her age, right? Thinking that it was going to make her look better. And, in the retoucher's defense, she did look really nice, but she lost her character and it didn't look like her. And it was very unique, the photo, because we're like, man, was this taken like 13 years ago? Because if so, then you look great, but this doesn't look anything like you right now. And photos should be a capture of the moment currently. At least that's my take. All right. So now we have our eyes better off. And let me go ahead and get my zoom tool. We're just going to fit this back to the window. Now, excuse me for 1 second. All right. So now that, sorry, just clearing my throat. So now we have our eyes, and the pupil is like super tiny in the frame, and it just doesn't look natural anymore. So we got to fix that. All right. The next tip is how to fix the pupil. Well, I actually have a really fun way of fixing the pupil. If you go to the local tab and you hit the paint with color. Now, mind you, you can do this in any version of ON1 Photo Raw. So that's why I'm not even telling you, other than the fact that you can see that I'm in Photo Raw 2023. You can do these things in any version of Photo Raw, because I'm pretty confident that they all have the clone stamp tool. And as long as they have a local adjustment, I started using Photo Raw on the 2021 version, so I'm not entirely confident that everything has it. But let's hit the Z key. We're going to zoom back into the eyes. We're not going to zoom in as much as we did because I want this to look as natural as I can make it. So we'll come into about 150%, and then we'll go ahead and get our brush tool. We're going to hit Shift X. So we are painting in, and what I want to do is make a circle about the size that I want the pupil to be, keeping some of that real estate in the eye, or in the iris, I mean. And I don't want a feather more than, we'll say, we'll start with a feather of 85%, see how that looks, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just going to click once. And now I've re-added a pupil that looks much more realistic. And then, you do what you do to one eye, you do to the other. And now what I can do, and that looks like it may be a little too much. So we'll just pull down on our opacity until it blends a little better. And then, of course, you want to look at the photo at 100%, and yeah, it looks a little too fake. So what we want to do is pull that back until it starts to get more in the like a normal eye would look. And if for whatever reason the eyes start to look like they do right now. They look normal, but they also look very retouched. What we can do is play with our blend modes until we get a response from the eye, usually in one of the darkening categories. Because when you come to this lighting category, you see how it like makes his eyes look like little dotty laser beams. That's no good. Maybe even soft light will work here for this particular image. And let's go ahead and turn that off and turn it back on. And you can see that his eyes, his pupils are a little bit more full. Not so much that we don't have the ability to work with his iris. Okay, so the next portion of enhancing eyes is going to be adding more kick to the iris. All right, now let me show you really quickly, because a lot of people, you're going to say, well, why aren't you just using portrait AI? And there's nothing wrong with portrait AI. Like, this did a really good job. Look at that. Like, it focuses more on the skin. The eyes section, you can get rid of dark circles if you absolutely wanted to, and that's going to brighten up that area, which I think this is good, right? And you can even whiten the eyes. That's going to go on the outside of the iris. And you can even enhance the eyebrows, right? All of these things are really, really good, and I'm not knocking them. In fact, I would encourage you to use these and then add in the local adjustments that I'm going to show you. But what it's not doing is bringing a kick. Let me zoom in now. We're going to be zooming in on some eyes a lot today. What it's not doing is bringing in a kick right underneath the iris, okay? And we want this to really come in pretty good. So there's a few ways that we can do this, all right? I'm going to show you two. The first way, excuse me for a second. All right, so the first way, we're going to grab a brush here, and we are going to select white as much as we can, right? I want this to be white. So I'm going to put that in the center. That's pretty close. Doesn't have to be entirely perfect, all right? And then I'm going to make sure that my feather is up 100%. And all I'm going to do is make my brush a little bit smaller, maybe even like so. And I'm going to paint right under the eye like this. And I'm cradling underneath where I made that pupil. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing on this eye. And my brush is a little bit lagging. That's just a challenge of using ON1. Now, this is a pretty poor paint job, but it'll still serve to show the purpose. So once you have that catch light or that iris enhance, you can come over here to your settings, and then we're going to scroll the blend mode, or move the blend mode down to soft light. And you see how that just lightens up the eye area. Now, you could do this all the way around the eye, right? So now that I have it in there, I can paint this in all the way around the eye. And I'm doing a terrible job, mostly because the brush is lagging behind. But you can see it just brings out some detail there, right? This is a terrible, terrible edit, and I apologize to this gentleman that I'm using here. But if you look at the eye over here, it looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and just reset the mask, and we're going to do this a different way. So I'm going to hit the B key to get up my brush settings, and then I'm going to select the line masking tool. And in fact, I need to zoom back in. So let me zoom back in. This is the way that I would recommend you create this particular effect, just because you can be way more precise. And the more precise you are, the better it's going to look. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click right about here, and then I'm going to go straight across, kind of at a diagonal, because I want this to hug underneath the eye. And then I'm going to click again. Now I'm going to drag this center point right under the iris, and then I'm going to make a straight diagonal scoop there. And then I'll come over probably to about here. We'll play around with this a little bit. And then what I'm trying to do is get that center handle again, so I may have to move that one up just temporarily. No, I want the other one. There we go. So we'll get this right under here, and then we'll bring this piece right back down, and maybe even need to move this just a touch. Yeah, we'll go like that just to close it. And what's going on here? Come on. So maybe we got to zoom in a little bit more. There we go. I got a hold of the handle. Okay. And maybe something like that. Okay. And then we want to, we'll go with paint out. So Shift X, paint out. So now it's only applying to that eye. Okay. We're going to hit done. And then why is it not applying? Let's hit B. Let's go back to our tool. Click on here. Maybe paint. Okay, let's try paint in. Well, now, of course, that's weird. Okay, no worries. ON1 is doing its own thing. So we're just going to hit invert. And now it's inside of the eye. I don't know what ON1 was doing, but you know, that's just the way things go sometimes. But we'll close that one out. Just trying to reselect this, and you can move this around now. And this is why I would recommend you use this particular tool to create this effect, because you can control the way that this works. And maybe like so. Okay. So now what you do to one eye, you do to the other. So I'm going to do this one really quickly. We'll click there. I'll click here. And I'll click here. And then we'll close the loop. And now, well, let me start with the bottom one. We'll come there. We'll come here. Maybe kick this up just a touch. Pull this in. Pull that over. And we want to paint. Nope. Shift X. And for some reason, ON1 just does not want to cooperate with me today, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, that's weird, because normally it'll work fine. But you can see if I turn this off and on, you can see that it just puts a nice little catch underneath his eye. And I'll just make a second one because I think that it's worthwhile to show. So hit the Z key, zoom this in, zoom in a little bit further, hit the brush tool, get my line mask tool, come over here, come over there, create like a little box looking thing, and I think that'll work. shape that down, shape this that way, maybe even pull this and bring this down just a touch, bring that down, and I want to, we'll just click because it doesn't matter right now since ON1 doesn't want to work with me. So we'll go ahead and invert that, change this to paint with color, change the color to white, and then we'll come up here and change the blend mode over to soft light. And now we have that there, and we can reshape this particular selection. I don't know why it grabbed the top one there instead of the bottom one. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that all the way up there. So that way I can shape this exactly how I want it to be. Bring this underneath the eye just like so. And there's already a feather of 4, but if I needed to feather it a little bit more to help it blend, I can do that by moving this maybe to 7, hit done, and now it blends a lot better. And in fact, I should probably go back to the other eye and change this to blend as a at 7 as well. I think that looks pretty good when it blends at 7. So we'll hit done, and then we'll hit the Z key. Let's zoom out, take a look at it, and I'm going to turn this particular adjustment off. And then if I turn them back on, just looking underneath the pupil of the eye, you can see that it is a really, really good way of adding interest to the eye. So that is the eye iris enhance. And excuse me while I correct my microphone. It just keeps falling down for some reason. Okay, so now that we have our eyes enhanced, or at least the iris enhanced, what I want to show next is how you can change the color of the eyes. Now, there's a few different ways that you can do it. If you have Photo Raw, I believe it's 2021 and above, if it has the replace color filter, then this is like a breeze. You can literally just come in here, click there, and it's now sampled that color. But what we want to do is limit the color range mask, and we'll click in here, see if we can get it down to just those eyes. So we'll hit the letter O, and in fact, we'll do it better. Let's just reset that. And we'll invert the mask, hit the letter O. Yep, I'm on my brush, so I'm going to make my brush a little bit larger, and I'm on paint in, so I'm just going to click, and it is now adding this effect only to the eyes, because that's the only place that I want to add this effect, all right? But it's also only using the selected color that is down here. And it actually did a really good job with that range. So all I have to do now is drag my hue, and look at how easy it is to move the color of these eyes. Now, it looks like I need to get a little bit further out there. And what I think everyone should do is at least experiment with using soft light as the blend mode, or I'm sorry, for this one, it would be color. Use color, so that way it's only impacting the color. Grab the Z tool or the zoom tool by hitting the letter Z. We'll zoom out, and we'll kind of just move around with the the colors here until we find a color that looks pretty good. Now, the saturation tool on the color change, you should probably lower that and go for a natural color of eyes, right? So blue is actually a very natural color. Let me just open this up and we'll pull this over because it should be a little bit brighter, and somewhere around here might work. But what we want is to pull down on the saturation overall. Yeah, maybe like so. And then pull down on the opacity because we're talking about natural color eyes here, right? We don't want a huge change in the color of the eyes. We want it to look natural. And I think that looks pretty natural. So going from brown eyes to this more bluish tint, and you could play around with this and really hone this in to make it whatever you want it to be. We can even pull up on the range a little bit, and that's just going to select more of those brown hues in the eye. So now we have a much brighter iris as well as a different color. So the final thing that I'm going to share with you is actually a more advanced technique, and we're going to be looking at adjusting the eyebrows. All right. Now, I'm not entirely sure how well this is going to work on this particular image, but we're going to do it anyway, just to see what happens here. So I'm going to hit duplicate, and we have to duplicate the layer for this to work. I'm going to grab some coffee while it does that. Okay. And for the sake of me knowing what I'm doing, I'm going to label this one right eyebrow. Okay. And I am going to click on my mask icon for the layer. And then I'm going to grab my line masking tool again, and I am going to create a shape of his eyebrow because I want to reshape his eyebrows a little bit. All right. I'm going to create a shape of the eyebrow, and I'm going to go probably something like this. And then I'm going to come up to the top because we want to sample the top part of his skin, and maybe like that. And we'll come down over here because I want to get those pieces, and like so. Okay. So I want to paint out everything else and only leave that eyebrow. We'll feather this quite a bit. Maybe we'll go to 10. We'll go with 12, and we can always readjust if necessary. So if I were to hide this base layer, you see I only have the top part of his eyebrow area. Okay. I still have my right eyebrow portion selected here. I'm going to click on the transform. Using my down arrow key, I'm just going to start moving that entire layer down. And as you can see, it's moving that that portion of the skin that I had selected. It's moving it down, and it's starting to cover up his eyebrows and reshape them. So eventually, and let me hit the letter O. I know that it's showing me the mask, but why are you being so slow today, Mr. Computer? Okay, so it's catching up to all the other movements that I made, but maybe it's not going to work for me. This is just the struggles of live streaming because my computer's just all over the place behind right now. I think it's finally caught up, but that's way too much, and I don't want it to be down that far. And even clicking on it, you can click and drag, but you end up with it all over the place. Nonetheless, you can fix eyebrows like by by selecting a new layer or creating a new layer and then making a fake eyebrow shape above it and then dragging that down. So that way you get this cool looking cleaned up eyebrow. As you can see, turning it off and on, it really does make a difference to that entire area, especially in this portion right here. You can see that it just makes the eyes look a little bit cleaner. And when we're talking about enhancing the eye, that really does matter because when you zoom out and you turn this off and on, that's like a huge difference, right? Now, again, ethics on how much you should change in a photo, that is 100% debatable. But I don't think that is changing his look. Now, if he had like a scar right there, then maybe you wouldn't want to do this. But he doesn't have a scar. He just had a shadow, and there was an area there that I think could go without. But like this area over here, there's some hair that's coming out over here. And this is an area that you can clean up because this is not a defining characteristic of this individual, right? We're not getting rid of his beard, which again, could or could not be a defining characteristic. You can even fix up these little hairs that are down here, and I'll show you how to do that probably in a later tutorial. So that way he doesn't have gray hairs. I don't think that that's ethical. Don't need to get rid of gray hairs. I think that's fine unless they ask you to. But all in all, where we went from the beginning of this photo, let me just go ahead and hit done. And then I'll show you where we went from the beginning with this photo where he had those little rings around his eye to where we are now with this photo. No rings around the eye. The eye sockets are a little bit brighter and more defined, and we changed the color of the iris. So if I were to, let's just go ahead and shift select there, and we'll do a comparison between the two. So and we'll do lock and zoom, and we'll zoom in. Can I go further? I think I can. We'll go a little bit further. And because we're only focused on looking at the eyes. Oh, okay. I was about to say, why didn't it pan? All right. So because we're only focused on looking at the eyes, if you look over here, you can see he had that ring light. We got rid of that, rebuilt his pupil, changed the eye color to a more bluish green look. And then if you look at the eyebrow over here, and this is way more distinct in a photo where the eyebrow really is needing to be improved. I didn't retouch his eyebrows all that much because my computer started to slow down. And I also use Portrait AI. Now, if you do not have Portrait AI, all of the things that I showed will work perfectly fine. But if you're on one of the more recent versions of ON1, then you can absolutely use Portrait AI, and you get this really clean looking skin, as well as more detail. Like if you look at his beard here, it's sharper. There's just more detail in the face, and it really helps it pop. So that will wrap up this morning's live stream and tutorial. If you got questions and you just want to know more about ON1 Photo Raw, then drop them in the comment section below. I do get back to all of the comments that are left for me. I'm going through a remodeling of my office, which is why you see all this stuff laid out over here. So hopefully I can bring higher quality video content and streams, but for the time being, I got a little bit of a messy space. So I do apologize for that. I'd love to hear your comments about retouching photos, how far you should or shouldn't go with retouching photos in the comment section below. And if you're on Vero, then shoot me a message at Free Will Photos. I'd love to connect with you. I am a real person, and I'm not some dude that is just on YouTube but never wants to communicate with the community or connect with the community. So if that is something you're interested in, hit me up over on Vero at Free Will Photos. Now, if you want to pick up a copy of ON1 2023, Photo Raw 2023, use Free Will Photos 20 at checkout. You can save 20%. If you use this code on any product on the ON1 website that isn't subscription based, you'll get 20%. If you go with one of the subscription products, then you'll get 5% off. And that is just a good way for you to save some money and get a product that you want to get. So I'll pause here. If you guys got any questions, I'll be more than happy to cover those. But if not, then I will see you in a later tutorial. All right. You guys have a good day, and I will see you later. Stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.